when I walked into Jennifer's engagement dinner at the Willow Creek Country Club. I half expected the familiar warmth of family celebration, but what greeted me was a sting sharper than any winter chill. As I greeted relatives in the softly lit dining room, Jennifer raised her crystal glass and fixed her gaze on me. "I just hope I never end up like Mary, single with a child," she announced with a practiced smile. A ripple of genuine laughter swept the table, punctuated by my Uncle Robert pounding his hand on the mahogany surface. That's just how men see second-hand goods. Even my mother, Linda, offered a polite chuckle before reaching for her Chardonnay. My cheeks burned as my heart pounded like the old church bell back home. Yet in that moment of humiliation, something unexpected shifted the air. Mark, Jennifer's fiancé, an otherwise quiet presence that evening, rose from his seat and walked deliberately toward me. The laughter dissolved into an uncomfortable silence. Forks hovered midair, and every gaze followed him. Mark's calm voice cut through the tension as he said, "I think everyone should know something." The words landed like a bell tolling at midnight, unignorable and resolute. For the first time that night, it felt as though I might be seen not as a cautionary tale, but as the mother my son Jack knows me to be: strong, devoted, and deserving of respect. That opening exchange would become the fulcrum of the evening, the hinge on which everything shifted from mockery to truth, from isolation to recognition. It was a moment that reminded me, and would remind every one of you, that dignity isn't given, it's claimed. Even in the face of laughter, the late afternoon sun cast a warm glow through the frosted windows of Patricia Monroe's living room as 9-year-old Claire Bennett tiptoed across the gleaming hardwood floor. Her silver party dress, picked out weeks ago, caught every stray beam of light. And in her small hands, she cradled a crimson-wrapped box tied with a simple white ribbon. Inside that box lay more than just paper and ribbon. It carried months of hope, hurt, and the quiet promise her father, David, had made when he legally adopted her. Around Claire, the Bennett family world hummed with holiday cheer and expensive tastes. Cousin Olivia tore into a brand-new tablet, squealing as she showed it to Uncle Robert. Little Marcus clutched a wad of crisp $20 bills, his face alight with excitement, and the scent of roasted ham mingled with cinnamon-scented pine boughs draped over the mantel. But to Claire, this grand room, decked out like something from a glossy magazine spread, felt dangerously thin, as though one misstep might send her right through the polished oak and into oblivion. From the edge of the room, David watched his daughter's every move, jaw set with determination. He remembered the day at the county courthouse when the judge had signed the papers that made Claire his daughter in the eyes of the law. He had dreamed of this moment, Claire surrounded by family, celebrated like any other grandchild. Instead, he had learned just how deep the divisions ran. When Patricia finally turned to Claire, her smile was polite but hesitant. She pressed a lavender-scented candle into Claire's trembling hand and murmured, "I didn't want you feeling left out." "Sweetheart?" The gesture felt hollow, an afterthought meant only to preserve appearances. Claire's fingers closed around the candle as if it were a cold stone, and her wide brown eyes flicked to her father for guidance. He nodded, hand slipping inside his sports coat to grip the small red box he had prepared months earlier. Silence fell as David stepped forward, placing the red box gently on the silver charger before Claire. The chatter died mid-sentence. Glasses paused halfway to thirsty lips, and every relative's gaze turned toward the pair. Claire straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin as she met her grandmother's eyes. "Grandma," she said, voice unwavering despite the tremor in her chest. "Dad told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." Patricia's glazed expression flickered into confusion. With delicate fingers, she untied the ribbon and peeled back the wrapping paper. revealing first a framed photograph. Claire, frosting smudged on her cheek, wrapped in David's arms the day she officially became his daughter. Beneath it lay a sealed envelope bearing David's neat handwriting. Patricia's breath caught as she lifted the letter, and the room held its collective breath with her. She read aloud, voice quavering. "Mom, if you are reading this, it means you have hurt Claire by choice, not accident. I married your son, expecting my child to be cherished by her grandmother. Yet every iPad and cash gift you handed to her cousins came at the cost of Claire's belonging. She is my daughter in every way that matters by law and by love. If you cannot love her equally, then you have chosen to exclude her." As the final words sank in, Patricia's composure shattered. A raw, guttural sob ripped through the hush, louder than any carol playing softly on the stereo. David moved to place a comforting hand on Claire's shoulder, while Olivia and Marcus stared in stunned silence. The grandmother who had once presided over these gatherings with practiced grace now stood undone, confronted by a truth she could no longer ignore. In that moment, Claire no longer felt invisible. The candle she had once clutched became a symbol of the light she refused to let dim. The red box became a testament to her father's unwavering commitment to her worth. As the family circled them, some with tears, others with lowered eyes, Claire realized that belonging wasn't a gift to be doled out at someone else's whim. It was something you claimed through courage, love, and the steadfast support of those who truly saw you. Every year, the invitation arrived like clockwork, an elegant cream-colored card embossed with gold lettering, inviting the Harpers to Patricia Monroe's grand holiday brunch. Michael and Sarah Harper spent weeks rehearsing their smiles, tucking Sarah's cranberry-glazed ham recipe into their mental checklist and reminding 9-year-old Emily to practice politeness. They believed in family traditions, the warmth of shared carols, the sparkle of tinsel on evergreen branches, the comfort of gathering around a feast. Yet beneath the festive veneer lay a familiar ache every holiday. Emily found herself shrinking into the background, invisible beside the laughter that rang louder for her cousin's shiny new gadgets and crisp $20 bills. Sarah could still recall the first time she noticed it, a birthday party 6 years ago, when Emily's handmade gift, a small wooden box painted with bright rhinestones, was set aside without a word, while Patricia fawned over the other children's store-bought treasures. At first, Sarah chalked it up to oversight, whispering to herself, "She's just absent-minded." But the slights persisted, subtly mismatched table settings for Emily, back of the cupboard place cards, polite but distant good mornings, each slight, though minor on its own, accumulated like a silent tally, and Sarah felt her heart tighten whenever she saw Emily's hopeful eyes dim with disappointment. Michael pleaded with himself to stay calm. He reminded Sarah and himself that tradition and family unity mattered, that Emily would value the memories of cousins laughing and caroling together, but late at night. He wrestled with his conscience, gripping the steering wheel of their minivan on the drive home, imagining a different scene, Emily standing tall, recognized as any granddaughter should be. He often checked the rearview mirror to catch a glimpse of her sleep-crumpled curls, promising silently that this time would be different. That moment of reckoning arrived on a crisp December afternoon, just days before the scheduled brunch. Michael watched Emily play alone in Patricia's snow-covered backyard through the picture window, a solitary figure against the pristine white, her breath visible in the cold air. Inside, Patricia's artificial tree glowed with store-bought perfection, and the smell of ham roasting in the oven hinted at tomorrow's feast. Michael felt a sharp pang he could no longer sit by and let his daughter question her place in this family. After Emily's bedtime routine of storybooks and lullabies, Michael slipped into his home office and retrieved the small red box he had prepared months earlier. Inside lay a framed photograph from the day he legally adopted Emily, her chocolate-frosted grin pressed into his shoulder beneath the courthouse lights, and a sealed envelope addressed to Mom in his neat script. with a deep breath. He penned a letter reflecting every unspoken hurt, how Emily was his daughter by law and by love, how she deserved the same warmth and gifts her cousins received, and how, if Patricia could not open her heart fully, she need not darken their doorway again. He tucked the letter and adoption decree inside the box, tied it with a single length of red ribbon, and placed it carefully on his desk. That morning, Emily chose her silver party dress again, the one that caught the sunlight like frost on winter branches. She fastened a glittering headband in her curls, oblivious to the weight of tomorrow's promise. Michael and Sarah drove to Willow Creek Country Club in companionable silence, hearts heavy yet resolute. As they entered the softly lit dining room, rich mahogany panels, crystal chandeliers, and rows of polished silver platters, Emily's smile fluttered with anxious excitement. Patricia greeted them with practiced warmth, sweeping past Emily toward the cousins, who erupted into delight at their iPads and gift envelopes. When it was Emily's turn, Patricia offered her a small lavender-scented candle with a murmured, "I didn't want you to feel left out, sweetheart." The candle felt cold in Emily's hand, and she glanced at her father. Michael stepped forward, placing the red box gently on the pristine linen tablecloth. The room stilled, forks paused midair, and every guest turned toward the Harpers. Emily lifted her chin and met her grandmother's gaze as she echoed her father's instruction. "Grandma, Dad told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." With trembling fingers, Patricia untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside, the framed adoption photo glowed softly under the chandelier light, and the envelope bore Michael's confession of decades of hurt. As Patricia read aloud, her voice breaking on each sentence, the room held its breath. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized the depth of what she had overlooked. A single, guttural sob shattered the silence, louder than any holiday carol. Emily stepped forward, her small hand resting on her father's arm, no longer invisible, but finally seen. In that moment, the holiday traditions they once clung to were transformed. The red box remained on Patricia's table as a testament to truth and belonging, and the Harpers walked home into the crisp winter air, free from the burden of unspoken slights. Emily's step was lighter, her heart steadied by the knowledge that she belonged wholly and was loved without condition. And for Michael and Sarah, the cost of breaking the silence was nothing compared to the peace they gained in standing up for their daughter's rightful place at the family table. For months, Michael Harper had carried a small red box in the pocket of his winter coat, its weight a constant reminder of the promise he'd made to his daughter, Emily. He first wrapped it one crisp October afternoon, shortly after the backyard leaves had begun to turn gold and scarlet. Through the living room window, he'd watched Emily chase her cousins through Patricia Monroe's meticulously trimmed lawn, laughing one moment, then shrinking into herself the next, as Patricia called out to the other grandchildren for hot cider and pumpkin cookies. In that instant, Michael resolved that he would never let his daughter feel invisible again. That evening, after Emily was tucked into her pink flannel pajamas, Michael retired to his study. He placed on his desk a framed photograph of Emily on the day he legally adopted her, frosting still flecked on her cheek as she hugged his knee beneath the courthouse lights. Beside it lay a crisp copy of her adoption decree, stamped by the county clerk, and an envelope addressed to Mom in Michael's neat handwriting. He wrote his letter with deliberate care, each sentence carrying years of unspoken hurt. "Mom, if you're reading this, it means you have chosen to hurt my daughter again, not by accident, but by design. When I married your son, I never imagined you would treat your granddaughter as anything less than family. Emily is my daughter in every way that matters. If you cannot welcome her fully, then you have shown where your true loyalties lie." He folded the letter, slipped the decree behind it, and placed both inside the red box. A single length of scarlet ribbon secured the lid, no bows. No frills, just enough to mark it different from the polished silver platters and glittering holiday decorations he knew would fill Patricia's home. In the days that followed, Michael felt a newfound calm. He no longer flinched when holiday invitations arrived or fought the familiar knot of dread in his stomach. Instead, he held tightly to the knowledge that when the time came, Emily would have the power to speak her truth. When the morning of the family brunch at Willow Creek Country Club arrived, Emily chose her silver party dress, the one Michael had bought for her adoption celebration, and brushed her curls into place with a glittering headband. Patricia's dining room was as grand as ever, crystal chandeliers, polished oak trim, and tables laid with fine china and gleaming silverware. Emily's cousins squealed over tablets and crisp $20 bills, the air thick with cinnamon-scented pine boughs. But Emily felt no spark of jealousy. Instead, she stood quietly beside her parents, eyes steady, knowing what was about to happen. Patricia greeted them with her practiced warmth, but paused when she reached Emily, offering only a lavender-scented candle and a polite, "I didn't want you to feel left out, sweetheart." The candle felt cold in Emily's hand, a gesture meant to pacify without apology. At that moment, Michael stepped forward and placed the red box atop the pristine tablecloth. The chatter ceased instantly. Every fork clinked to stillness. Every conversation halted. Emily straightened her posture, lifted the box, and looked Patricia in the eye. "Grandma," she said, voice unwavering. "Dad told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." Patricia's face changed from surprise to dread as she untied the ribbon and removed the lid. Inside lay Emily's adoption photo and the sealed envelope bearing Michael's letter. Patricia's breath caught. She lifted the letter with trembling hands and read the first lines aloud. The room held its collective breath as her composure unraveled, shoulders sagging, eyelashes fluttering with unshed tears. No one spoke. Patricia's carefully curated image of holiday perfection lay in tatters beneath the weight of her granddaughter's words. Michael moved to place a gentle hand on Emily's shoulder. Sarah's eyes glistened with relief. In that charged silence, Emily was no longer the overlooked child. She was the granddaughter who claimed her place with dignity and love. As the family dispersed into hushed whispers, the red box remained on the table like a beacon of truth. Emily slipped her hand into her father's, and together they walked out into the crisp December air, leaving behind the pretense of unity that had cost them so much. For the first time, Emily Harper knew she belonged fully, and Michael knew that. Having broken the silence, nothing would ever make her doubt it again. The Harper family's Thanksgiving feast always felt like stepping into a holiday postcard, the scent of rosemary-infused turkey roasting in the oven, the warm glow of amber-hued leaves drifting past the bay windows, and the long farmhouse table set beneath an antique chandelier. This year, 9-year-old Emily Harper arrived in her cranberry red cardigan and navy skirt, her curly brown hair pinned back with a festive ribbon. She carried herself with polite excitement, but beneath her hopeful smile lay a quiet dread, one she had carried to every holiday gathering since first grade. Patricia Monroe, the family matriarch, stood at the head of the table with her customary grace. Her silver hair was pulled into a neat chignon, and her pearls glinted against the ivory lace of her blouse. With a gentle tap of her fork against a crystal wine glass, she called the cousins forward for the traditional place-setting reveal. Cousin Olivia floated up in her butter-yellow dress to find a hand-painted charger inscribed Olivia in gold leaf. Little Marcus, tugging at his plaid vest, discovered Marcus on his matching plate. Each child smiled and twirled before Patricia, who adjusted their napkins and offered a glowing compliment. Then came Emily's turn. Patricia looked down, cheeks flushing sympathetically. and slipped a simple white plate pulled from the back of her china cabinet into Emily's hands. Without missing a beat, she murmured, "Sweetheart, I didn't want you to feel left out." The plate felt cool and foreign in Emily's fingers, as though it weren't meant for her at all. She lowered it to the table, smoothing the embroidered napkin over its edge, her heart twisting like a pressed flower. Emily sat next to her mother, Sarah, who offered a quick, encouraging smile. Her father, Michael, cleared his throat and began the blessing, but Emily's gaze remained fixed on that plain plate so stark against the gleaming silver and festive decor around her. Laughter swelled as casseroles were passed and mashed potatoes scooped, but every burst of mirth felt like a reminder she was the exception in this celebration, the one grandmother had included only out of obligation. At the sound of spoons clinking against bowls, Emily leaned close to her mother and whispered, "Mom, does Grandma think I'm just visiting?" Sarah's eyes flickered with pain. She reached across the table to squeeze Emily's hand, securing the small red box she'd hidden beneath her chair. Inside that box lay the adoption papers that had made Emily Patricia's granddaughter in the eyes of the law, and a letter from Michael that bore the weight of years of unspoken hurt. Michael watched his daughter's small shoulders rise with each breath. He remembered the day he signed the final adoption decree, the proud smile on Emily's face, frosting still clinging to her cheeks, as she embraced him in front of the judge. That memory had become his lodestar proof that Emily belonged here as fully as Olivia or Marcus. Now, as Sarah placed a generous helping of green bean casserole on Emily's plate, Michael knew it was time to claim that promise. When the last of the main course was cleared and the room buzzed in contented chatter, Michael rose from his seat, the red box in hand. The shift was immediate. Forks hesitated, conversations faltered, and every eye turned toward him. He walked to Emily's side and knelt so her amber eyes met his, in a calm voice that carried across the hushed room. He said, "Emily, honey, you do have something to give Grandma." Emily stood, clutching the box as though it were a fragile promise. She walked forward, placing it before Patricia. Patricia's smile flickered into confusion as she untied the scarlet ribbon. Emily spoke clearly, without tremor. "Grandma, Daddy told me to give you this if you ever made me feel like I didn't belong." In that stunned silence, Patricia lifted the lid. First came the framed photo of Emily on adoption day, her arms wrapped tight around Michael's neck. Beneath it lay the sealed letter. Patricia's eyes filled as she read the opening line aloud. "Yo, Mom, if you're reading this, it means you've chosen to hurt my daughter again. Emily is my child by law and by love. If you cannot love her fully, then you have chosen to exclude her." A single, raw sob echoed through the dining room. The seasonal playlist faded beneath the weight of that moment. Emily's cousins looked on in wide-eyed silence. Sarah wiped a tear from her cheek. Michael placed a protective hand on Emily's shoulder, pride and relief mingling in his gaze. In the days that followed, the red box remained on Patricia's mantle as a testament to truth and belonging. Emily Harper no longer tiptoed around family gatherings. She sat with her head held high, sharing stories and laughter with newfound confidence. And for all of us watching this story unfold, it's a powerful reminder we deserve to be seen and celebrated just as we are. If Emily's courage moved you, share your own story in the comments below. Have you ever had to claim your place at the table? And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more real-life moments that remind us every voice matters. When Patricia Monroe lifted the lid of the small red box, the entire dining room fell into an uncanny hush. Chairs creaked as her grandchildren leaned forward, and the soft murmur of conversation dissolved into expectant silence. Patricia's fingers trembled as she reached inside and withdrew the first item, a framed photograph of her granddaughter. Emily. Taken on the very day Emily was legally adopted, in the image. Frosting still speckled Emily's cheeks, and her arms were wrapped tightly around her father. Michael's? Neck proof that she belonged to that family by both heart and law. Beneath the photo lay a sealed envelope addressed in Michael's neat script. Patricia's breath caught as she lifted the paper, breaking the thin film of tension that hung in the air. She unfolded it with care, as though the slightest tear might shatter something precious. Then, her voice quavered as she read aloud, "Mom, if you're reading this, it means I have been forced to remind you of a promise that Emily is your granddaughter in every sense. Yet time and again, you have shown her that she is less than your other grandchildren with candles in place of iPads, a mismatched china plate in place of a personalized charger. She is my daughter, and she deserves to be treated with the same love and respect as any child in this family. If you cannot do that, then you have chosen to exclude her." As the final words echoed through the room, Patricia's composure shattered. She let out a raw, guttural sob that ruptured the polished calm of her holiday table. The crystal chandelier overhead seemed to tremble in sympathy. Eyes watered around the table, some relatives shifted uncomfortably. Others pressed hands to lips in shock, but none of them looked away from Emily, who stood beside her father in a shimmering silver dress, her small hand resting confidently on his arm. Patricia rose unsteadily, her pearls momentarily skewed, and crossed the distance to wrap Emily in a trembling embrace. It was imperfect, her arms didn't fully encircle the child, but it was real. Emily's eyes closed briefly against her grandmother's shoulder, and when she pulled back, her steady smile brimmed with a new certainty. She was no longer the overlooked child. She was seen in the days that followed. Patricia's transformation rippled through the family. Gone were the perfunctory gifts and distant greetings. Instead, Emily received handwritten notes slid beneath her bedroom door, invitations to bake cookies in Patricia's spotless kitchen, and gentle compliments at every gathering. One afternoon, Patricia presented Emily with a delicate silver bracelet, a late gift, but chosen with care, inscribed with the words, "Beloved granddaughter." Meanwhile, Emily's confidence blossomed at school. She raised her hand more often, volunteered for the lead in the holiday play, and laughed freely with her classmates. She no longer measured her worth by the number of presents she received or by the warmth of someone else's smile. She knew without a doubt that she belonged. The small red box itself found a permanent home on Emily's bedside shelf, nestled beside family photographs and her favorite bedtime story. It was more than a keepsake. It was a testament to the power of truth and the courage to demand respect. Whenever Emily felt uncertain about friendships, school projects, or teenage challenges, she would glance at that box and remember the evening when her voice changed everything. For Patricia, the box served as a poignant reminder of the cost of silence and the redemptive power of acknowledgement. At 70 years old, she understood that love cannot be rationed, nor can belonging be earned through obligation. It must be given freely, each and every day. And so, this holiday season offers a lesson for us all, especially those of us who have witnessed countless family traditions. It's never too late to open our hearts, to apologize, and to choose inclusion over indifference. Because sometimes the smallest package can carry the heaviest truth, and when that truth is embraced, it can heal old wounds and knit a family together once more. Emily Harper rose calmly in the gentle morning light, clutching the small crimson box her father, Michael, had prepared. Around the long brunch table, relatives murmured over coffee and pastries until Emily placed the box before her grandmother, Patricia Monroe, and spoke with steady resolve, "Grandma, Dad told me to give this to you if you ever made me feel invisible again. A hush fell. Forks paused. Laughter ceased, and every gaze turned to the silver-dusted dress and determined eyes of a 9-year-old claiming her place. Patricia's hands shook as she untied the ribbon, revealing the framed photo of Emily's adoption day and the letter that bore years of unspoken love and pain. In that charged moment, Emily became more than the single mom's daughter or the cautionary tale she had once been. She became the granddaughter Patricia could no longer overlook. T. A heartfelt lesson for real life. We all deserve to be seen, heard, and respected no matter our age or situation. Sometimes, the bravest act is simply standing tall and speaking your truth. If you've ever felt invisible at a family gathering or workplace, remember Emily's courage. Your voice matters, and setting boundaries can open hearts. If this story touched you, please share your own experience in the comments below. Your story might give someone else the strength to speak up. And if you'd like more inspiring true moments that remind us why every voice counts, subscribe to our channel and tap the notification bell. Together, let's celebrate the power of being seen.